This is AA4FL for Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, the Medical Amateur Radio Council. Happy Father's Day to all those who are here today. We're live on 20 meters on shortwave radio, on amateur radio, and also have a simulcast on Zoom for members that are not HF enabled. We are making a video here to produce for our YouTube channel, so all our members that can't be here this morning and the general public can enjoy the roundtable discussion that we're going to have here. So Father's Day in sports are crowning moments that fell on the day that honors dads. And we talk about some of that right now and hear from our members as well. So, why these games? Why this day? It's a bond passed down. For generations, sports have been the language fathers and children speak together, whether it's a game of catch, seats at the ballpark, or a round of golf on a Sunday afternoon. So it's no accident that some of the most unforgettable moments in sports history have landed squarely on Father's Day, the third Sunday of June. And we're going to talk about some of those moments, the triumphs and the tributes that turn a holiday into that history that's the bonding of fathers and children. I'll pause one. Every June, the U.S. Open final round is deliberately scheduled to finish on Father's Day. It's the only major with a standing date with the holiday. The result is an annual ritual, fathers and children watching golf's toughest test decided on the same afternoon year after year. So it's produced more Father's Day drama than any other event in sports. Some of that drama, a star was born at Oakmont at the U.S. Open in 1962. There was a 22-year-old named Jack Nicklaus, and he defeated the hometown favorite Arnold Palmer in an 18-hole playoff to claim his first professional major. They both finished at 283. Nicklaus won the Monday playoff to announce his arrival on golf's biggest stage. Is there anyone here from Marco that remembers watching that particular match? Please go ahead and let me know. Okay, none here, but I don't remember that. I was a little young at the time. But the duel ignited one of the greatest rivalries the sport has ever seen. And of course, that golden beer era truly began then in that week. And we all know about Jack Nicklaus and what an everyday name Jack is. What about baseball? I'm sure many of our members have gone to baseball games with their family. What about Father's Day baseball games? 1964 in Shea Stadium. I know we've got Barry here with us, WB1FFI, and I'm curious, Barry, if you remember or know anything about the 1964 game that was the perfect Father's Day. Barry, are you aware what happened on that day? Go ahead.
Yeah, hold on a second. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm okay.
Good.
Yeah, I was not quite 10 years old, and so my recollections of those years are imperfect. But also going on right at the time of that period was the New York World's Fair, 1964 and 1965. So there's a lot of activity in the Flushing Meadow Park section of Queens back then, and I'm sure I watched the game on television at a minimum, but I do not recall being anywhere near that game. So
That was
back to you.
WB1FFI. Barry's transmitting from Syracuse, New York. Thank you, Barry. Barry's our immediate past president and an avid Mets fan. Of course, you're young there, Barry. That was a perfect Father's Day. It was perfect, unfortunately, not in the Mets' favor. Phillies ace Jim Bunning threw the seventh perfect game in Major League history on that day, beating the Mets 6-0. It was the first perfect game in the modern National League era and the first in the regular season since 1922. And fittingly, Bunning was a father of 7 when he achieved perfection on Father's Day itself. Is there anyone on 20 meters that remembers that particular game? Make your call. Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Yeah, well, baseball is not the only sports to have memorable results on Father's Day. In 1996, Michael Jordan had recently had his father pass away. So it was very deeply personal for him. And the record setting 72-10 Bulls, he led them past the Seattle Supersonics to win his fourth NBA title. So he collapsed on the floor, the game ball sobbing and enduring an image of both grief and triumph. And for him, it was a signal of his father supporting him. Going back to golf in 2008, June 15th, on Father's Day, Sunday, Tiger Woods sank a birdie putt on the 72nd hole to force a playoff at Torrey Pines. And he won the next day in a 19-hole playoff, and all on a torn ACL and two stress fractures. It stands among the most courageous performances golf has ever witnessed. And he would not play again that season, but that win was worth it. In 2013, we had another capture of a major, the first major by Justin Rose, the first Englishman to win the US Open in 43 years. And after his final putt, he looked skyward in tribute to the late father, Ken, who died in 2002. Also racing, a lot of amateur radio operators are NASCAR fans, probably just as many as the other major sports, or perhaps any more. Do we have on 20 meters here any NASCAR fans that would like to check in before we have this roundtable discussion? It's a very quiet Father's Day here on 20 meters, and I could understand everyone's celebrating with their families and hopefully can enjoy this presentation in a recorded version later. But there's racing family tradition on NASCAR on that day because it's long road on Father's Day weekend. The sport's built on family dynasties like the Pettys, the Earharts, the Allisons, and generations of drivers grew up traveling, wrenching, and racing alongside their fathers in the garage. And in 2026, the series staged its first ever street race at San Diego's Coronado over the Father's Day weekend. You can see we're even developing new traditions for Father's Day, new sports traditions. Let's pause for a moment here and start with 20 meters and ask for events that you enjoy doing on Father's Day. Do any of them involve watching sports? Make your call on 20 meters, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Any comments on Zoom? Anyone that would like to comment about Father's Day and things they like to do with their father and whether or not it involved either sporting events or playing sports or just that special bond of time together? Make your call. I'm not seeing any input from that now in the roundtable discussion. So let's talk some more about legacies. How about passing down the game like father, like son? In 1990, Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. that became the first father-son pair to hit back-to-back home runs in a major league game. Cal Ripken Sr. managed both sons, Cal Jr. and Billy, on the Orioles, a rare family trifecta in one dugout. And more than any sport, baseball is handed down from parent to child, the heart of every Father's Day at the ballpark. And don't forget, this is also activity between parents, the things that are embedded in our memories. The catch in the backyard becomes the bond of a lifetime. So we have an additional check-in with us, Mary, AE4BX. Thank you, Mary. Mary, while you're here, I'm going to do a little follow-up on Mother's Day, Mary. You know, there was one very important person we left out of our Mother's Day program. It was Christine Haycock. So Christine was a former president of Marco. As with, I think it was WBA2YBA. And in going through our history of Marco, it happened upon a lot of details about Christine. So it was far beyond just being president of Marco. She had also been very involved in the radio, Women's Radio League, had been a prior president. We have somebody to honor, and I'm afraid we omitted them on Mother's Day. So here on Father's Day, we're going to, Mary, if you'd like to unmute and tell us if you have any memories of Christine. Still muted, Mary. There you go.
Yeah, she called and welcomed me when I joined the Marco group. And I had just a few short conferences with her, really nothing. I didn't see her that many times, but she was always an admirable person. As far as your father's day, my grandson is playing baseball. He got recruited for Coastal Carolina, and then the coach moved to University of South Carolina and took 5 players with him. My grandson is with him. He's a left-handed pitcher and a first baseman. So he thinks he's going to make $1 million and be a professional baseball player. We've never had one, but his father started those boys catching and hitting the baseball and when they were toddlers. We have a picture of him in his diapers hitting the ball on a tee. And his father was college baseball player, but never went to the pros. But anyway, parents have a great influence on children, and both mothers and fathers. So, but that's all I have. This is
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary. AE4BX.
Yeah.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta for identification. AA4FL at the mic. Ran rounds in the internet, the weekly occurrence. There on 20 meters. Today we're having a Zoom simulcast. We do have some prompt slides that I use for these presentations. And if you'd like on 20 meters to see the slides, just go to our website, healthcarehams.org. That's healthcarehams.org. And if you look on the right-hand column, scroll down a bit, you'll have the links to the 2 documents for today, because we're going to be talking about the Father's Day aspect of the holiday. Then we're also going to be talking about the sporting event this year that's very popular, the World Cup, and the effect that the World Cup is having on the father and son bonds, and some of the difficulties some foreigners are having in actually getting here for a number of different reasons to enjoy the World Cup in live fashion. So thank you, Mary, for the input here. Mary, if I remember correctly, Christine was a sports medicine specialist, and I believe I ran across a book of hers, or at least a picture of the book that she authored and commentated on. So that is available online as well.
I know she was a surgeon. I didn't know she was in sports medicine.
Okay, well, I guess a lot of her surgery probably,
Yeah.
Sporting injuries. So maybe that's where it came from. Thank you for
Yeah.
elaborating and correcting me on the exact nature. I guess that was a subspecialty
Yeah.
for her. Yeah, if she got to work on those $1 billion baseball players, that certainly would be rewarding. Back then, I don't know if they were held in as financial esteem as they are today in all the major sports. So we do appreciate the history of her, because if you really think about it, she was well ahead of her time in leading organizations and participating. She was a Renaissance woman, well ahead of her time. And nowadays, in the medical profession, the dental profession, the health professions, we don't really delineate between males and females. Everybody's equivalent. If anything, I think so. We're probably having more women in medical and dental school than we are men on average. So it's equalizing out here. Well, going back to the sports history, we talked about 1962 with Nicholas topping Palmer for his first major. 64, Jim Bunning's perfect game on Father's Day. 1996, Jordan's emotional fourth title, Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bulls, which I should put Stuart Osserman's A Smile on Your Face story on A9 ZPL that we're mentioning Chicago. 2008, Tiger Woods forcing a playoff on one leg at Torrey Pines, and 2013, Justin Rose's heavenly tribute at Marion. And I'm sure we're going to have more and more days to celebrate Father's Day in the context of sports. So it's a holiday that's written into the records books. It's a standing date always, so the U.S. Open finishes on Father's Day every year, guaranteed. Fresh drama every June. There's triumph and tribute. There's individuals who have lost their parents or honoring their fathers, lost on that day, and a shared inheritance across all these different sports. The through line is through the families passed down, as we were just hearing from Mary with her son and her grandson, passing down of the love of baseball between the two. And by the way, Mary, you're the University of South Carolina, of course, is an SEC team. So if the Gamecocks are playing here in Gainesville, you've got a place to stay. If you'd like to come and visit and see your grandson play. And that's the end of that particular part of our discussion. We're going to pick up the World Cup in just a minute. But do we have any further check-ins on 20 meters? Make your call this time. Okay, this is AA4FL, the mic operating out of Hawthorne, Florida. And this is the Grand Rounds on the Internet, like weekly net for many, many years. And it's always on this time. This is our slot. We will predate the POTA activities in terms of date. That's the reasons. No offense to those of you on POTA, but we do appreciate the clear frequency. Hopefully there are many of individuals that are out with their families enjoying time in the parks, and perhaps they're allowing the fathers and their families to have a little bit of parks in the air activity. But what about the World Cup in 2026? I mean, are there challenges to keeping fathers and sons from getting here to watch? If you watched any of the matches on the World Cup, certainly the stands are full. You see people, fathers and sons, fathers and daughters. You see families together enjoying and passing down that legacy. And it just happens to be that the matches this weekend are very intense. And we're in that first round here before we enter the knockout round. But how do the U.S. entry rules, travel bans, and processing bad logs and visa challenges, and also the challenges of perhaps making sure that Ebola from a health standpoint, public health standpoint, doesn't become an issue, knowing that there's parts of the world here that may have had exposure to Ebola. So that's where we're going to pick up our discussion right now. The largest tournament ever, of course, the World Cup, and the strictest entry rules. The first team, 2018, largest World Cup.
It's really tough. Right.
You see, we've got Bob Condor with us now, A4RLC checked in. And we have also Alana, A4AAC with us as well. Thank you for checking in, guys. We appreciate you coming on a holiday and after church as well. Thank you. We've got you both checked in.
Yeah, we had early church today, wanted to get here, and I just want to go back to Father's Day. My dad was a great golfer at low handicap or 4 or 5, and like you say, the Open is always on Father's Day, and I had many fond memories of watching the U.S. Open with Dad. He'd never really played golf on Sunday. I don't know if it's a Baptist thing. You don't play golf on Sunday, but I really like that and miss those times watching the U.S. Open with Dad. We live south of Pinehurst, so it's a good golf community there. So back to you, Jay.
Okay, that was K4RLC with AA4FL, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Bob, what about other sports on Father's Day? Did you guys ever go to baseball games on Father's Day? Or I know you're a really big hockey fan, but it's after the Stanley Cup. Back to K4 also.
No, we lived in a little town, and Dad was, growing up, he played football and baseball, and he actually played football for Army in Japan in the Army of Occupation. He was in the Army Occupation from 45 to 47 after being in the Merchant Marines in Europe from 43 to 45. But his sports really, the nice thing about golf, you can play it forever. There's young men's sports like hockey and even soccer or football that are hard to do. But we would just sit around and watch pretty much the U.S. Open and putter around. And again, golf is really, I know when I was in graduate school down at Baylor and Waco and would come home to North Carolina, which was about a 12, 14-hour drive, even on the interstate. First thing my dad would do is say, let's go out to the club, play 9 holes, And we would bond. I hadn't seen him in months, and we'd go out and hit the links there. So.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for RLC. It's a great bonding between father and son on golf. Thank you for letting us know that's an important part of your family background as well. We have the recording for YouTube later, Bob. We covered a lot about golf in the beginning of the session before you were able to join. So we'll have the opportunity to view that later. And then the World Cup now, we're having a sport that in the United States, I mean, historically not as popular, but it certainly is getting to be very popular now. So the students at the University of Florida, and we have quite a few students from other countries. Of course, it's popular with them, but it's also popular now with students that grew up in the United States. I was talking with students this past week, and a lot of them didn't realize that back in the 1970s, we had professional league here in the United States. I grew up in Miami seeing the Miami Toros and the Fort Lauderdale Strikers play. It was always a fun activity, and we would go on dates there, and it was popular with me. So the current activity level, of course, is much higher, and children all across the country are now playing soccer or football, as they would say, overseas. And in seeing the fervor here with the World Cup being hosted in the United States, it's a very popular homecoming here. And because of the Ebola lately, though, and the visa issues, there are some inhibitions that made it difficult when the cost of tickets. So when I look at the families that I see, I'm curious. I know these are the early rounds, but we're talking Super Bowl type ticket prices as we get further. So perhaps the early rounds would be more families. We'll have to look in the stands as we get further in and see if we still see the same amount of children attending with their fathers and their mothers. But there's 104 matches across 16 host cities, and the 16 host cities include Mexico, within Mexico, the United States, and Canada. 78 of them played on U.S. soil. 10 million visitors expected in the USA, but out of those 10 million, 25% approximately of the fans face visa barriers. So there's 3 doors in the United States. There's a visa waiver program. There's B1, B2 visa, and there's no authorization. Canadians and Bermudan passport holders enter as tourists without either. So, there is a process for getting a visa, and you can apply. It does take minutes to hours, so it's important to be prepared. Players are protected, of course, but the fans are not. So there's 2 presidential proclamations, June of 2025 and December 2025. They restrict entry from 39 countries, and both carve out an exception for the tournament, but it's narrow. So who's covered? The athletes and the players, the coaches and the technical staff, necessary support roles, and the immediate relative of athletes. Now, that may be a little misleading according to the Iranians. I'll have to look at the details, but it's my understanding that they've had to stay in Mexico and come over for the games. And who's not covered? Well, if you're an ordinary spectator, a journalist in media, a corporate sponsor, extended family and friends, well, then you're not covered under that. So you have to pursue your own visas. Let me pause one. This is the Medical Amateur Radio Council of Grand Rounds Air Net, our weekly net here in 20 meters. We're doing a Zoom simulcast today as well. Looking for additional check-ins at this time, open to the entire amateur community for roundtable discussions. Make your call this time to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, no additional check-ins at this time. Well, thank you for everybody that is here with us. We know that it's a holiday weekend, so this is being recorded. We'll make that available to all our members. What about the travel restrictions? And there's 4 qualified nations, for example, that have 2 very different fates. Of the 48 teams, 4 come from restricted countries. The players can compete, but ordinary supporters are largely shut out of the U.S. matches. And Iran, there's a full ban on ordinary supporters. The players are cleared. Staff is delayed, but not participant. Of course, there's probably plenty of Iranian fans from Iranian Americans. Haiti, there's a full ban, no fan entry exemption. Côte d'Ivoire, and the Ivory Coast's been doing extremely well. There's a bond waiver for ticketed fans. In Senegal, which is also here in the group, and I know I had a student from Senegal I was talking to just like last week, they have a bond waiver for ticketed fans. So 25% of those global fans coming from 39 restricted countries, 19 under full suspension, 20 under partial limits. The visa bond, what is that all about? It's a pilot program that consular officials require refundable cash bond from B1, B2 applicants in their 50 plus higher overstay countries in the World Cup waiver. Because the bond is 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, set case by case, refunded only if the traveler departs on time. In May of 2026, bonds were waived for ticketed fans from 5 competing nations enrolled in the FIFA Pass program, as Algeria, Cape Verde, Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Tunisia. And if you've been following the World Cup this year, Cape Verde has done an incredible job in their matches. So where does the clock run out before kickoff? How do you get a visa interview? Because it's enormously varies by consulate. That's the wait times. High demand countries, an application filing this spring may not clear until the final. So if you look about the days of wait, 80% of consulates worldwide are now under 60-day waits per the State Department. But we've added 600 plus visa officers, double shifts, and 24 operation and key missions. And you can see there is a chart available that shows the waiting times and dates. If you would go to our website, healthcarehams.org, those on 20 meters, on healthcarehams.org, on the landing page, the entry page, just scan down to the right-hand column about halfway down and look at the post section. You'll be able to bring up all the background material, the prompt slides for today's discussion, a roundtable discussion. So a FIFA pass, the priority interview, is not a guarantee just because you have you're a ticket holder. It speeds the appointment, but doesn't change whether or not you qualify. That's if you buy from FIFA.com or on location. But what if you're a resale? If you're a resale buyer, you don't have that protection. And there have been some cases this year of resale buyers also not having their tickets be genuine. When I say genuine, they got caught in a loop where some of the resales didn't communicate with FIFA. The tickets were not reserved for them, even though they paid for them on these secondary sites. And there's a priority for doing all this in the interview. Again, you can look at that on our website. But even the protected are always getting through. An athlete exemption shields players, but what about referees, federation staff, and officials sitting outside of it? Security vetting has already caused friction. There's been a referee that was turned away. The Somali match official, Omar Artan, was denied entry despite his selection. Critics warn of a precedent for politically influenced exclusions. What about being based in Mexico? Several Iranian staff faced delays or refusals, and Iran reportedly relocated its base to Mexico, crossing into the U.S. only for matches. And I think that's a current event. You'd have to look as of today to see the situation, whether the United States has modified that standing. In diplomatic friction, the Iran's Federation alleged discriminatory treatment. U.S. officials defended vetting as a security necessity, not a spawning one. Again, you would have to look at today's events, go online to see if that's still the risk. So, what are supporters running into? The timing risks with the visas, the resale penalty because they don't qualify if they bought their tickets from a resale site, and the approval doesn't guarantee entry. And we're finding people that are not getting entry in that resale penalty dilemma, and the chilling effect. You know, the attorneys also report fans are afraid to travel even with a valid visa, and there's a broader tourism dip because of it. So there's one tournament and three immigration systems that fans have to deal with. They're going to have to deal with the systems in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We got 78 matches in 11 cities in the United States, 13 in Toronto and Vancouver. In Mexico, 13 matches in 3 cities. And you could have waits in all 3 countries. And if you're going to go to matches in all 3 countries as the World Cup proceeds, you're going to have to go through all those systems. So how's the host trying to keep up the United States? Washington has framed the World Cup as a showcase, and they pledged extraordinary steps to move legitimate travels faster through staff surging, bond waivers, the FIFA pass lane, AI assistance. A practical playbook for fans and delegations. Apply the moment they have ticket. This was recommendations. Obviously, it's ongoing right now. Buy the tickets through official channels and confirm whether or not need some special visa or nothing at all before booking flights. And the team officials need to verify their status online, carry proof of ties, accommodation, and return visas, or if visa is not a guaranteed entry. And for multiple country trips, you have to check each host rules and multiple entries wherever possible. So it's an open in spirit, but gated in practice. Players are largely protected. Spectators, officials, and media really carry the real burden. The travel bans, bonds, and backlogs together can keep a quarter of global fans away, and etc. We've already talked about timing is important. In a moment, we're going to talk about whether or not Ebola has put an additional length, an additional amount of pause into getting through these visas as well. Do we have any questions or comments from those of you here in the Zoom portion of our simulcast? Go ahead and let me know, and we'll get you involved.
Hey, Jay.
Okay, we have K4RLC. Let me turn the mic over to you, Bob.
It's really interesting. I didn't know about the visa aspects, and again, the World Cup is the world, and historically, football is the most played sport in the world because it only involves a ball. So you can be in Guinea or Eastern Europe or whatever. Most of those fans, I don't think, would be able to travel. So that's where video and media helps. In the old days, we had the Voice of America that would do the broadcast to Sierra Leone or all of these countries. And I hope that there's still media outlets like probably the BBC who's carrying stuff, and even in the friend of mine ran a non-governmental organization where they dropped radios into villages in Africa. And some of those were pre-tuned to Voice of America stations. But hopefully that around the world we have this wonderful medium called radio, not so much TV, but it can be used in the poorest aspects of countries. So back to you, Jay. K4LC.
Okay, thank you, Bob. K4LC. Bob, congratulations on the local accomplishments for the Stanley Cup. I seem to have seen a photo of you and Alana with the Stanley Cup. You want to tell us a little bit about what happened in Carolina this year? Did you have a true hurricane event?
Yeah. So here's. So I was the head neuropsychologist for the Carolina Hurricanes concussion program. And I think I've talked about this before. The National Hockey League, way before the National Football League, instituted a concussion management program, very sensitive to the players. If you've watched hockey, and here it is, we're in Raleigh, North Carolina, with Duke and NC State and Chapel Hill, UNC. But Raleigh is a hockey town. It's the center of the hockey world right now. But you watch hockey, and it's just high velocity, high impact sports. And there's been all kinds of engineering things. Jay, you would like it. My dentist is retired, but he was the dentist for the Hurricanes. Gabe Rich, he played in college. And for example, the glass, it used to be a hard glass. Have you ever noticed the plexiglass moves? They did that so it would impact some of the inertial forces and reduce craniofacial injuries. But it was great. I started working with them when Rod Brindamore was a player. Timmy Gleason, the assistant coach, was a player. Jordan Stahl's brother, who won the cup the first time, was a player. And it's just amazing athletes, hockey players. And then we had a run, and a lot of it was really, I think, due to Rod Brindamore and his mentality. Just one of the toughest, nicest people at the same time, and respectful people we've ever seen. So it was really great. We wore down Las Vegas, and most of those are really nice Canadian boys. If you heard the show yesterday, the announcer said, "Gosh, some of the kids in North Carolina learned a new F word today on the TV." They were Martinique especially. But anyway, it's been really good. But the medical management of a pro team, especially a high velocity impact team, is you think of the orthopedics, but also the brain injuries that have happened, and of course then there's the NFL stuff. Work very little with the NFL, but also the other major sports, Major League Baseball. You can get a concussion almost in any sport, but very happy to see just lots of good guys working together as a team at an incredibly elite level with a wonderful sport. So it's good to have the cup back in Raleigh. And Atlanta and I got a chance to have our picture made with the cup. That's actually a couple years ago. It's not this one. I wish I was working with the guys now, but we did, and sent it to Jay. That was the real Stanley Cup. And it's an amazing, cup, sterling silver, the names of every player who's won it since Lord Stanley developed the cup, 100 years ago or so. So enough rambling on my part. Back to you, sir.
Yeah, well, K4LC, AA for the mic, FL mic for ID is the grand rounds on the Delta every week on this frequency. And we do appreciate the clear use of the frequency that all the amateurs are affording us, especially those on coded ones. So, Bob, you had mentioned on a previous discussion what hockey players, they not only have to skate forward, I don't remember how many miles per hour, 40 miles per hour, but they also have to skate backwards at the same time. So let's compare that to soccer. I think in football, soccer, they certainly have to run the entire, most of them without few substitutions. In hockey, there's a lot of substitutions. So the physical burden is probably pretty equivalent. But they also, both sports, you pretty much have to have eyes in the back of your head. You have to know everything that's going on and those behind you. You want to comment on that? K4LC, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Yeah, the reason the hockey shifts are so short, and Pete Friesen, our old trainer, explained this to me. So look, most of the time you're doing aerobic metabolism at your cell level, your mitochondria, you're metabolizing oxygen to give energy to your muscles and your brain. He said that hockey players, they're doing anaerobic metabolism. They're so fast. They've used up all the oxygen. So that's why you have a shift on the ice. It's just a couple of minutes or so. And and they're skating 40 miles an hour backwards. A soccer pitch, the other sport to compare soccer to is rugby. Rugby is much more rule-based. Alana's cousin, Karen, is a physician in Dundee and teaches medicine at a little college called St. Andrews. And I was talking to her about Magnus, her son. We're over about 12 years ago, and about soccer, and she just sort of, Karen's very, very proper, and sort of said to me, Bob, you don't understand. Soccer is a working class sport. Magnus plays rugby because he's at a private school. It's a wonderful series on Netflix called The Sporting Game, about the development of the original English soccer league coming out of the mill workers. You see that. So some of those guys, I don't know. I took a semester of soccer at Chapel Hill 50 years ago. It was a blast. And if you're a runner, it's great. Some of the positions, like the goalie, you think about a hockey goalie and a soccer goalie have to be the same, but the forwards out there, some of the most incredible, athletes out there. I'm a little biased because of my Scot background. I really enjoyed Scotland and Morocco. I thought that was one of the best games so far, even better than the U.S. and Australia. But just the athleticism is incredible.
Let's put the mic over here for some comments from N5RTF. Go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, I just a very brief aside. A friend took me to a hockey game one time and pointed out that hockey is just soccer on ice. And if you think about it, the way the ice, the sections are laid out and the rules and everything, there's a great similarity between soccer and hockey. N5RTF.
Yeah, very much. And if you historically, the stick and ball game came from ancient history. The Mayans did that. A lot of those, and then you get just basically, well, we just need a ball. And that's the nice thing about soccer, that in all the poor countries, that you don't need all the equipment you need for American football or tennis or any of that stuff. You just need a ball and a dirt field, and you can go to town and have a wonderful time.
Comment?
Okay, go ahead. Comments. This is WA9ZPL Stewart. Turn the mic over.
For soccer, you also need an accurate clock or wristwatch to time the playing, and those have become affordable and universally distributed, but that was not always the case. Just for point of comparison, in baseball, you do not need an accurate clock at all.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Both games have gotten to be very popular internationally. Baseball's starting to make a nice share. Of course, that's for official matches, but if it's just kids playing on the playground, it's certainly easy to get a ball or make a ball. When we went to Bonaba Island on our expedition, we brought many things. We bought school books, shoes. We bought soccer balls, right, to give to the children. There are 325 people on T33 and Bonaba Island, and visited very infrequently. And out of that, there's about 60 children. So interesting enough, though, the only island in the Kiribati island chain, 24 islands over, I don't remember how many miles, 1,200 miles. And the Bonaba is the furthest one to the west. It's the only one that's not an archipelago. It's a phosphate coral island with 260 feet of elevation. But through the years, the coral remained where the phosphate was taken out by dynamite. You have these tall columns of coral with vegetation since the country was abandoned by the British and Australians, which say allowed to become independent in 1979. And in the time since, the vegetation has grown up and it's kind of dangerous. So the top of the island is a soccer field, and that's what we used for the CW antenna site. And if you're really interested in seeing the videos of the T-33A de-expedition, you'll be able to see the antennas on the soccer site up on the top elevation there. So just on YouTube, look up Bonneville T-33A or look up Garlets and Bonneville, and you'll be able to see videos where you can see, well, they're not playing sports, obviously, because we commandeered it. I've also shared the video now, the slide prompt slides here for those of you that are on the Zoom, the Ebola portion of our discussion here, our roundtable discussion. So on 20 meters, you can go on healthcarehams.org, healthcarehams.org, and you can see these. You can be able to watch the prompt slides that we're using for our roundtable discussion. Do we have any further check-ins on 20 meters? This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. We encourage all amateurs to check in and participate. It's not limited to all members. Make your call at this time, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Yeah, I'm not hearing any further check-ins. I'm not surprised here. Of course, it is Father's Day. That's part of our discussion here. But what about Ebola and the protocols to contain it? I mean, did that strain, the largest mass gathering ever, the Tri-National Public Health response design to keep the gates open and then stand safe? How did that affect people getting their visas? It's a deadly outbreak, a broad low risk at the gates here, though. That rare strain of Ebola spreading in the DR Congo and Uganda. And I see we have a team from the DR Congo participating here. And they declared a public health emergency of international concern on May 17th, getting awfully close to the time of the World Cup. Of course, it does spread through bodily fluids, not the air, so experts rate the tournament transmission as well. But at the time this particular background was generated on June 11th and 12th, there had been 689 cases confirmed in the DR, but 139 of those result in deaths. However, in the 3 host nations here that are participating, there have been 0 cases and low expert-related risks to the public. So the bigger crowd threat, not really, there's no licensed vaccine for the strain, but officials say more transmissible illnesses, such as measles, flu, COVID, pose the larger risk in packed stadiums now, this time. Excuse me. So there's one aligned screening system in 3 hosts, but in the United States, there's 4 funnel airports. We talked about this, I believe, in a discussion, a recent discussion. So air travelers from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, Southern Sudan are rerouted to Dulles, Atlanta, and Houston, JFK, for enhanced entry screening. And there's a 21-day monitoring. Returning citizens and residents from affected areas have to enter only through those hubs and agree to be monitored for symptoms for 21 days. So what happened with the Congo squad? They were a team in a bubble. They were isolated for 21 days in Europe, temperature screened on the plane before landing in Houston. Spotting an outbreak before it spreads is important, with fans moving between 16 cities in days. A layered surveillance net watches for early signs in the near real time between all these different sites, cities. And there's a CDC liaison, his weekly calls all 11 of the U.S. host cities, and the staff on the ground in shared outbreak data. There's a health security center, Georgetown MedStar Hub. They daily look at the issues, and the situation report is provided to hospitals and officials. They're also monitoring the wastewater testing, which flags measles, flu, COVID, and more before the cases surge. And there's movement mapping tools track the teams and fans traveling between venues and trace where the spread could go in case that would occur. So again, it's not just a concern for Ebola from a public health standpoint, it's a concern for all the other issues that one just mentioned. So the response and preparation include containment plans, real gaps, and a fan game plan Biocontainment beds and isolated pathways stand ready. MedStar runs one of 13 U.S. cities. There's hospital drills and contact tracing protocols, rehearsing a worst-case arrival. Yet 625 million went into event security and none to public health with no single cross-border command. What about the fan game plan? Fans should check their vaccines before they travel. The measles, the flu, MMR, COVID, Tdap, hepatitis A and B, and fans, of course, should practice hand washing and safe water, treating water, and stay aware of crowded fan zones and watch for symptoms for days afterwards. You mentioned reason travel if you're far. And of course, any of us that travel to Europe, the same precautions or concerns that we always have, particularly with COVID still circulating. I know a group of us NARCO members, which are primarily physicians and spouses, and some of the spouses were physicians, went to Europe not too long ago last year. And some of us came down with COVID, even though many of us have recent vaccinations. So it's still an issue. What about religion? What about Muslim majority nations in the welcome they meet? Because many of the countries hit hardest by the U.S. entry rules are Muslim majority. Even as cities roll out halal guides, prayer maps, and a welcome mat alongside real barriers and safety concerns. So the entry rules fall heaviest just happen to be Muslim majority nations. And there are two presidential proclamations restricting travel or limit from 39 countries. Those 39 countries are mostly Muslim majority, African, or both. And players and coaches hold an exemption, but the fans do not. So we talked about that already, what it takes to get in from those countries from a visa standpoint. And the fans from Iran and Haiti face the full visa ban that we talked about. So the squad can play, but most supporters cannot, as we talked about those teams. And that's an issue, and it's been talked about earlier. And praying for and eating well far from home, where prayer is not guaranteed. Unlike Qatar in 2022, no U.S. stadium has confirmed a dedicated prayer room, but there are 2,700 plus mosques and quiet rooms on request to fill the gap. And halal is certainly easy to find. Houston, New York, Dallas, and Atlanta, the sites all have deep halal food services. Apps and city guide maps are verified. Options are provided near the venues. And a summer of long delays causes peak summer light, compressing the prayer window. Scholars permit shortening and combining prayers on the move between hotel and stadium. So the real worries and real welcome and the fan plan, the safety and the balance. What worries the fans? The rights of 120 plus organizations issuing travel advisories on warning of racial profiling, intrusive searches at the border, planned ice and facial recognition around venue, as fans in the host city uneasy with who gets stopped, and a visa or approval is not a guarantee of entry. Officers keep broad discretion at the port of arrival. So from a fan stand, carry the documents, the rights, keep an emergency contact and backup plan for match day. A banned nation fans can still share in Canada or Mexico. The no equivalent travel ban applies to Iran and Haiti. And lean on the host city halal and prayer guides, community groups, and mosque networks near each stadium. But it'll be interesting as we get further into these rounds. I haven't seen where all the finals are taking place, but I would presume that we're looking at the United States for most of those. It'll be interesting to see if the composition of the crowd, as we talked about in our Father's Day portion of today's roundtable, that I'd be curious to see the crowds if the content changes for many reasons, not just because of being in the United States, but also the cost factor. These are incredibly expensive tickets at this time. Do we have any comments from 20 meters, over 20 meters, or late check-ins? Make your call, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. No additional comments. Now, how about on Zoom? Any comments from our roundtable participants? Well, no additional comments. I wish everyone a a happy Father's Day. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording here. Now, thank you for all of you that are watching this on Zoom. We appreciate that you're listening, and realize the Medical Amateur Radio Council does have a website, healthcarehands.org. And we also have the YouTube channel you're watching. So you can learn all about our organization and what we've been doing for the last 60 years, as this is our 60-year anniversary. Best Father's Day to everyone.